Hello everyone and welcome back to Football Manager 2018 and another part of this experiment where we're seeing how long it would take a tier 22 team to reach the pinnacle of football if they had unlimited money. Now that's a very long experiment name, but I'm sure you're familiar with this one by now. If you aren't, you should go back and see the first few parts. They are very good. Before we crack on with this, I want to say another massive thank you. The support for this series in particular has been unbelievable, and over the last week we have grown faster than any other Football Manager channel on YouTube, and that includes the really big channels. So thanks so much to everybody who's hit that subscribe button and watched this series. And if you haven't already, make sure you do hit that subscribe button. I keep saying it, but 85% of you are not subscribed, and you need to hit that button. It helps the channel grow and gets more people watching these videos. But what we're going to do today, I said it last time, we're going to go 10 years into the future. That will take us to the year 2037. They're in tier 13 at the moment. So they could, in theory, get very, very high up. They could be even in league football if all goes well. So we are going to go forward 10 years, maybe 8 years, I'm not sure. It will depend kind of how the game's looking at that point. I'll stop at the most interesting point, I think, and then we'll go forward. So let's skip ahead and then take a look at how they've managed to do. Well, we are now 10 whole years into the future. I've kept up the promise. We are 10 years ahead. A lot has happened in that time, so we're going to race through this very, very quickly. Now, when we left off, they were in Mid-Sussex Football League. They're now in the Southern Combination League Division 2. I've never heard of that. I'm not sure any of you will have. But you can see they've had a couple of testimonials now. Some players hitting 10 years at the club. Vickers and Pycock getting goals or getting testimonials there. And then the league season kicking off perfectly. Lots of clean sheets. They did concede to Wick, but then carried on with a lot more clean sheets. Conceded to Balcombe's second team in the Mid-Sussex Senior Cup 4th round. Love the name of these cup competitions. They're so catchy. Mid-Sussex Senior Cup quarter-final win. Just no goals conceded. This is exactly the same as pretty much every other season we've looked at. But they won the Sussex Intermediate Cup final. They won the Southern Combination Division 2 league title, and they won the Mid-Sussex Senior Cup final. So only 3 trophies that season, a step down from previous years. The following season, again, very good. They're finally in the FA Cup. They're in the Southern Combination League Division 1, and they're now in FA Vars, my apologies. But they've managed to get through to the 3rd round there, and then in the 4th round, they finally lost a competitive game against Kirkley and Pakefield. Disappointment there in extra time as well, no less. Very disappointing they weren't able to win that. 96th minute goal helped Kirkley and Pakefield win that game. But they did continue winning in the league, and then they did win the Southern Combination RUR Charity Cup final. I have no idea what RUR stands for. It might be a business, could be literally anything. And they also won the Southern Combination Peter Bentley Challenge Cup final. Plus points to anyone in the comments who can tell me what RUR stands for and who Peter Bentley was. And again, my apologies if that's me being massively ignorant, but I love that they have the cup named after someone. I'm sure he was a very famous footballer. Now, the following season, another testimonial. They are in the FA Cup. We're in the preliminary rounds against Shepton Mallet. They won 5-0 there. And then in the FA Cup first qualifying round, they won 2-1 over Billericay Town. They also managed to beat Shepford Town and Campton. But then they came up against Whitehawk, who are right up either in the conference or the Vanarama National Premier League, whatever it's called now, or the one just below that. I don't think they're in league football. That might be me making a massive mistake, but I'm pretty sure they're not. But only an 85th minute goal prevented them there from going through. I am going to have a quick look at where Whitehawk are in the game, but bear in mind this was about 7 years ago. And you can see they're in Vanarama National League South. So they're about, at this point, 8 tiers ahead. Something ridiculous like that. But you can see a few more cups in here. The FA Vars as well. Got through in the 3rd round against Leicester Nirvana. Then beat Chessington KC. Few cup competitions on the go as well. Beat Littlehampton Town in the 5th round. Still winning every game. Won in the quarter-finals against Stanway Rovers. It'd be pretty big if they win the FA Vars. 1-0 in the semi-final first leg. 3-0 in the return leg. And then in the final, they did beat Gorleston 2-1 in the FA Vars there. Gorleston currently sitting down in the Bostik League Division 1 North. But very good season there for them, winning the FA Vars trophy. They also won the Division 1 Challenge Cup final, the RUR Challenge Cup, or Charity Cup final, and that Peter Bentley Challenge Cup as well. So another very good successful season. The FA Vars, a very important trophy to win in this climb up the leagues. You can see they're in the Bostik League Division 1 South now. They are getting into more recognised leagues. They also won the Isthmian League Cup 2nd round. Another very recognisable name there. Doing well in the FA Cup. They got to the 4th qualifying round and beat Moneyfields 2-0. And then in the FA Cup, they drew with Barnet away from home, a league team there. And then lost 2-1, an 84th minute goal causing heartbreak for them against Barnet, but that shows the level that they're at. The season carried on being extremely good. They did lose a league game against Lewis, the first time they've lost a league game in about 15 plus years. I don't think they've lost a league game since the very first season, so it's a massive milestone. They also lost the FA Trophy final, not the FA Vars final. I don't think they're in the FA Vars anymore. They're now in the FA Trophy, which it used to have a name that I remember, but FA Trophy final now. And they did win the Isthmian League Cup final 4-0 against Leatherhead. Now the following season, Bostik League Premier Division. They did manage to do well in the FA Cup, qualifying again, but then went out in the 4th round to York City. 2 goals in the 88th and 89th minute, knocking them out. They are so close to making it a step further, but they just keep letting it go right at the end. That's their non-league status coming into play. But not straight greens here. Even in the league, they are drawing games, they are losing games. And that is a sign that they're starting to reach that point where they could hit a wall. And they also lost in the FA Trophy, so they've not won that, losing to Hereford, who are a good team, well-resourced, but they did win the Isthmian League Cup final and the league title. Now the following season, they're finally in the Vanarama National League South. They are at that point now where they are in the game's actual loaded league. So the game runs a lot smoother at this point. It's a lot easier for me to move forward, but it's a lot harder for Fairwarp to get good results. You can see so many draws here, and then defeats to the likes of Upham. They're out in the FA Cup 4th qualifying round to Eastleigh. Lost to Chippenham Town. Did win the FA Trophy 1st round against MK Dons, no less. And then in the 3rd round as well, winning the quarter-final. And then drew in the FA Trophy semi-final against Leckham. But then came through on penalties in the 2nd leg and did win the FA Trophy final against Barnet. A 2-0 win in the final. Absolute history for them. And they've managed to make it all the way to the pinnacle of non-league football there, and the highest league in non-league football, because they also won the league title. So they're in the Vanarama National League, which means that they're going to struggle at this point, I would imagine. They lost to Leighton Orient 2-1, even Charlton Athletic down here at this point. 1-1 with MK Dons also down here. Other big teams, they got to the FA Cup 1st round, beat Northampton there 2-1 into the 2nd round for the first time, but lost to Fleetwood, missing out on that incredible milestone of a 3rd round FA Cup tie. But they carried on in the FA Trophy 1st round, 2nd round, 3rd round, quarter-final, through the semi-finals, and won the FA Trophy again, 2-0 there. They are the best team in non-league football and have been for a while, but they are now a league side, and you can see them here in Sky Bet League 2. They are finally a professional league side. Now they lost in the Carabao Cup 1st round, so not a glorious entry to that competition. Quite a few defeats there, including their first Checker for Trade trophy, and their 2nd one actually. League actually doing alright, a lot of wins in here. And then in the FA Cup 1st round, out to Peterborough, so still no 3rd round. But their league form looking pretty good, and I know from memory they actually managed to finish 8th, despite all of these draws and defeats. The problem came next season. as you can see. They were hit with the world's harshest transfer embargo. I honestly cannot explain how and why this happened. Something happened to them. You can see it beginning to happen here when they started to lose a lot of games. I mean, this is the 35-36 season. Going into the 36-37 season, we'll look at it in more detail soon because this is the last season loaded. I mean, look at this. It started at the pre-season friendlies and just continued. They lost pretty much every game all season except for one against Field and one against Macclesfield Town. It's just horrific. They have changed so much from the season before to that season. Now, if we have a look at their transfer history for that season here, this is when they managed to finish 8th. They still hadn't spent any money, but then the following season, transfer embargo. But the players didn't leave, so I don't understand what this massive decline was. The other big thing to know is that in the 36-37 season, I think, if we have a look at the managers, if we can get this to load, you can see it was halfway through the 35-36 season, literally the halfway point. As we saw, the first half of that season going incredibly well. They were in the playoffs at that point. Second half of that season, Tim Tilley leaves after 18 and a half years. He leaves the club with 18 league titles and 53 cup wins. He left the club for a better job after that long in charge. It's hard to comprehend, but you can only imagine that is what caused this precipitous fall. You can see Brad Quinton resigned halfway through the following season, and then Josh Doherty was sacked 111 days in, another caretaker, then another manager sacked, and their current manager has only won one of his 9 matches. And I'm sure he will be sacked pretty soon. But this is really, really just horrible to look at. Now, if we have a look at their transfer history, going back over the last 10 years, just for information, you can see 140k spent, a lot of players coming in, 5k. They still didn't spend that much money, even as they got higher up these leagues. You can see 400k spent here, 76, they had more money leave that season, 200k, 49, 0, 135, 0, 0, transfer embargo, and so far, they spent £36 million. So you can see this beautiful rise, winning every single game, and then 8th in Sky Bet League 2, their highest position, and then relegated 24th place, and they could continue to fall. It's hard to know at this point until we go forward. But if we look at their senior squad, and then sort by value, you can see they've got one player worth 350k. This is the weakest squad they've had in a really long time, and I think it's just because they haven't been bringing proper players in for quite some time. And it's not about the finance either. So you can see they've got a good reputation, 3,100, and their finances, they've still got £178 million. They've got a transfer budget, they've got a wage budget, but they're just not bringing players in, and I don't really know why. Now, this is the same thing we ran into when we did the billionaire experiment way back at the start of this game. So I don't know why this is happening, but I'm sure we will figure it out eventually. If we just have a look at the Vanarama National League, make sure there's nothing wrong with the league table here in terms of points deductions, and there's not. The year before that, nothing there, and the year before that, nothing there either, and the year before that, Fairwarp. So you see Team United did get a 10-point deduction, but Fairwarp won it with 100 points. If we pop up into League 2 and go back a couple of seasons, so this was the season before Fairwarp came up. The following season, they did finish in 8th place. No transfer embargo, no points deduction, no nothing there. And then the following season, they finished at the bottom. Again, no points deductions. There's nothing there explaining why that happened, but a massive, massive drop. If we just go back and look at Fairwarp and have a look at their landmarks, there might be something in here. Going back, this was when it all started to change. Remember, around this time, they lost their manager. They did also lose their chairman in June 2035, and then by Christmas they lost their manager, but that doesn't show up in these landmarks for whatever reason. But you can see that they failed the financial fair play in the 35 season, in July. So they'd already made some signings before that. So they were running their starting season in League Two. They were running under a new consortium with a transfer embargo, and then halfway through that season they lost their manager, which led to all of this and their relegation from League Two. So we have finally, after such an easy ride, hit a major stumbling block. You can see the facilities are good. Fairwarp Recreation Ground now got a capacity of 2,500 seated. It can expand up to 20,000. They will come back from this. I might also give them some more money, but given they've still got 200 million, there's just no point. It's literally going to change nothing. So I might wait. Next time, I'm not sure how far forward we'll go. Maybe 3 years, maybe 5 years. I don't know. I'm going to run it forward a little bit slower, so there might be a delay before the next video, just so I can keep an eye on when the best point to stop is, and also so I can keep an eye a bit more closely on the detail of what is happening year after year, because if you just sim it forward the whole way, you can't really do that. So yeah, it's going to be interesting. If you guys are still enjoying this series, make sure to drop a like on the video. If you have answers to my questions, let me know in the comments. And if you're one of the 85% of people that hasn't subscribed yet and is stopping me from getting 20,000 subscribers, make sure you hit that subscribe button. It really does mean the world to me. But until next time, see ya.